Good morning, I'm Larry, an alcoholic. I've been through this process with a Big Book Step Study sponsor, a loving God, meetings like this, and completed my 4 more amends, and live in the latter steps a day at a time to the best of my ability. And I'm very grateful for Dave asking me to speak. I'm just very grateful in general. Every time, even though every time I speak or get up at the front of a room to speak, years down the road here, being through the process, fear comes into play. And then like it talked about, trusting, relying on God comes into play, which I'll speak about. Wow, you get what you need. Just briefly qualify a little bit about, not too long, on any drunk-a-log, but just going back to, like I said, I'm an alcoholic. Difference between me and other people that aren't alcoholics drinking is when I take a drink, never know what's going to happen. But I know it's not going to be sanity for this guy because I just keep going. My first drink back when I was a teenager, my first time drinking, went right into a blackout. And, tying in the topic, the second part of the 4th step here, fear, it was the girl next door to me, who was probably 15 and I was like 13. She was very cute, attractive thing, and had an eye on her. And she asked me if I wanted to go drinking Friday night. And I'm like, yeah. She could have said, and I'm afraid of heights, right? She could have said cliff diving, whatever. I still would have said, yeah. And so she's like, can you get some booze? told my wife right off the bat, here we go. Yeah. I'm like 13. I'm like, so you want what you want, right? And anyway, so there was 2 days before Friday, and we lived in Marlboro, and there was this woodsy little section of road that I would walk down to my buddy's house on, and it was nicknamed Lover's Lane as you got older in life. These cars would park back when you could. Park, drink on the side of the road. Nobody bothered you, right? That's pretty weird. Cops went by, maybe put the light on. Oh, hey, okay, busy. Just drinking or whatever. And so I remember that place is littered with like booze bottles. And I had noticed before from going down to the brook and stuff, fishing and wading, that there was just all kinds of bottles. And a lot of them had liquor still in them. Well, my first drink, I went down in there through the thorn bushes, through the picket bushes. We do what we got to do. And I remember getting tore up and reached in. I'm like, there it is, because it was a vodka bottle almost full, like, a big fifth. Wow. Took it home. The only drink I ever knew of was called a screwdriver, because my parents weren't drinkers, and they'd have it like 4 times a year on their big nights out. And we didn't have any of that. Had some grape juice in the fridge, so I'm like, that'll work. Top it off. This much grape juice. Boom, in the cellar. Friday night comes. Meet Sandy. And we had one heck of a date. Lasted about, I guess, somewhere between 12 and 15 minutes is my estimate. And but the funniest thing, so we walked down in the woods, the trail there, and we're drinking and talking under the street light. And anyways, next thing I know, I had these thoughts going through my head, real romantic. And I'm like, wow, she is pretty. Drink, right? Next thing you know, the problem became she kept going by me, swoop, going around. I was getting dizzy. And so I said, I gotta go. And I staggered up to my house and woke up the next morning. And my mom whipped up the shades in the room. Lights coming in at like 9:30 on a Saturday morning. No! And lift up my head. The pillow comes up. It's all purple puke stuck to the pillow. And yeah. And so so in essence, I was 13. I got here and I got sober in AA when I was 29. So I spent those years trying to maintain what Sandy told me about a day later. She was like, "Hey, lad, what's up?" And she's like, "That was fun the other night. Yeah, you were funny." Yeah? Okay. Got to work on that. Anyways, moving along. There was fear, around dating. There was fear. It turns out there was fear around a lot of stuff that I didn't know. A lot of childhood fears, doing this work, doing this spiritual surgery is very revealing, doing, a set-aside prayer, calling God in. Of course, the third step prayer is instrumental in getting down to, what's going on with us? Why am I like I am? Why am I different than others, And so, having gone through the first step when I got here at age 29, after that point of I never could control, I could prolong the blackouts, and it wasn't always a blackout, but I used to try, there goes the but, because God knows I'm not going to tell the truth at the moment, right? Because I used to sit there and say the number gets smaller, and this morning I should say 0. I used to think, right, earlier in AA, especially in open AA, that I'd controlled my drinking, and I could name those times. But remember, there was thousands and thousands of times that I drank. Because once I picked up, it became a thing. A couple of days later, I started working on that again. My friend said, try beer and stuff. And that slowed it down. And then, the drugs came in. Oh, now we can try to work with that. The idea was to try to maintain that point where, I'm like Good Time Charlie. And could end up, in a date, which turns into having a relationship, and having fun and trying to maintain a job and all that stuff. But alcohol and drugs, ruled my life. It made the decisions for me. When that happened, I was a freshman. And my grades went from honestly, A, B's, and C's to it went. Right after I started using. It wasn't a gradual decline. Never forget bringing that thing home. And it was it was F, D, F. It was 3 F's and 2 D's in the middle, right? Not real impressive. What happened? This is what happened. I started getting high, drinking all the time, and trying to control things, and it never really happened. So I was going to say that, there was those times where I could count where I drank, and it was not, I thought it went okay because there wasn't anything. But the longer you're around, the longer you dig deep, and you see what reality is, living sober, with a new perspective from having a spiritual awakening, it's even with my best efforts to be, I'm not going to say of maximum service, because I was self-servicing, because I was alcoholic, right? So I'm selfish. Those things, those good days where, what about me? And, fear-based decisions. Whatever I'm going to do that day, I got fear around it. What are people going to, the usual, what are people going to think? What do I want? And your opinions, And I didn't realize that till I did this work. So thank God for Big Book. Because I spent about 13 years, doing open AA, which definitely saved my life. Wow, what a difference. But after about 13 years, trying to just stay sober, dry. It's not the picture you would want. It's not the YouTube thing I would want. It's not a video that I would want, because my behaviors, fear-based, was still one of the major character defects was anger. okay? Fear-driven, right? That's not pretty. I was very physical, because of fear. I made, it's one of those guys that just thought, oh yeah, I could be a bouncer, no problem, because I fight all the time. So I signed up at all these different nightclubs from here to South Boston, no less. Worked down there, because that was better for me. Good therapy, there was fights every hour. And boy, those guys could fight. But anyways, it was like John Wayne. But, I used to think that's a good time, all bloody. I had a good night, shirts ripped, this, that, bloody, therapy, right? Getting that anger out. But when I did a 4th step with a priest when I was in Open AA on an AWOL, the priest said to me at the end of it, down there in Natick, and I went to Natick because of fear. There's some priest that, didn't know me in a different religion, the whole thing, because of fear. I'm like, nobody could ever hear this or see this, what's on this 4th step. And it wasn't even, a fifth of what was on my big book 4th step, right? And when I got done that 4th step, because of fear, right? I walked over, there was a Burger King in Natick Mall there. I walked around to all the trash barrels and tore it up in little pieces and put it in them. And it was snowing out, and I'm like, the snow ought to really, ruin it. And it's the exact opposite today. It's a different perspective. It's a shift, from having a spiritual awakening, from doing all 12 of these steps. I never want to, have, I think it's a little healthy fear. I don't want to misplace or lose my 4th step because I want to work with others. I want to be of maximum service to God. And, there's the truth for me to see again and to share with others about what alcoholism did to me and what God did in turn to get me sitting here today. So to talk about this, short but typical powerful reading, says about how fear, touches about every aspect of our lives. And it says there's like 100 forms of fear. Just to make sure I got them all, I guess I had 140, or I was extra fearful. As one of my big book buddies in Framingham Men's Meeting said to me, we're all a bunch of fear bags. And he was a tough guy. He's a guy you wouldn't want to mess with, the kind I used to respect on the outside, in the bars and the street world, and the same kind of guy I respect today, carrying that message up. I'm like, what do you mean fear bag? Like I get like, what? I'm not a fear bag. Tough guy, right? What's tough is not to act out on fear and trust and rely on God when life doesn't go your way, Because being selfish by nature, like my knee-jerk reactions still, can be when I hear something I don't like that's going on that touches, especially the emotional stuff, right? It's the kids, family, this, that, or the other thing, and something, I think it's not going to be good, My mind's like, this isn't good for who? For me? Maybe a loved one? And not trusting, relying on God that there's there's a reason and there's something good that's going to come out of it. And today doing this work, after doing, looking at all those resentments that comes right before this, and bracketing fear on each one of those. Like I didn't understand why that I was doing that. I really didn't. Some people seem to have more of a clue than I certainly did. But it became clear after, further in this work, that all those resentments that would kill me, that are fatal, because I had homicidal thoughts. I wasn't as suicidal. I'm not proud of that. That I thought that was a solution. And if this happens or that happens, or if somebody ever did that, justification, take them out. Nice guy, right? It's not the guy that, I want to be. What a difference of perspective when you bring God in. God's will, not mine, can be totally opposite. And that's the turnarounds come in. Fear of losing what I have always is an issue. Like I think I would hang on to things, fighting tooth and nail. When I say fighting, I mean fighting, whether it's physical or especially verbal, because now I'm in Open AA for 13 years, and fighting, whether it was with my wife or the kids. My boys that were, grown. By then they were, I started Big Book. Yeah, one was already in college and the other high school. And, they want to stand up to their stepfather. They need to. They need to become themselves and so forth. And they don't need what I was selling, at that point. They don't need the fear, It's like, I can't whack you because I'm in the program. So instead, I'm going to do more damage. I'm going to put, I hate to say it, it's not really the fear of God. It's just the fear of like an evil, angry, untreated alcoholic in your life. And thank God for counseling, this program, Al-Anon, and just God in general, because we're all healing. We've all been to counseling. A couple of us in the program, Al-Anon book read every day by my wife. I used to think it was for the kids and the other people. I'm sitting here for a reason, That said, yeah. So anyways, it talks about, fear should be classified with stealing. I get that. So many opportunities. And most importantly, like I was just touching on, relationships. Because I was so worried about me having my needs met. My needs. Not the lady that I married as much as me. Not my own children, who literally, jump in front of a car to throw them out of the way of the car. In many other instances that I've been in, like more in a physical situation, to try to save them that way. But really matters is, the relationship. Dr. Bob said that this program boils down to love and service. And I was like hanging on to that. Because the love part, it's a further step ahead. But being willing, to put others ahead of you and do what's right by them. But when I'm in the fear mode, when I'm living in these fears that I listed, I'm not thinking like that. And so then I look back to what I answered the 4 questions, where did this begin? And obviously relying on self failed, or I wouldn't be sitting here, I wouldn't have needed to do this process, wouldn't need AA. Where did it begin? Doing this work, I find out, so much of it went back to childhood fears and so forth that I learned growing up in an alcoholic home and just in this world in general. And I don't know, not here to figure out how alcoholism started or anything like that, but I do know I have an alcoholic brain. I'm a real alcoholic. And so the selfishness in me, myself, and I business has to stop. And it takes bringing God in and trusting and relying on Him, which especially in the beginning is way easier said than done. The more times you've been around, the longer you're doing this, the more, my experience is that my faith has grown through the years. All the time I thought that things weren't going right. But yet, hindsight's much easier. Like, oh my God, look at all the stuff that's happened through, I finished the process in 2007. And just the miracles that have happened. The people that are sitting here, and I'm going to stop soon because I see all these great speakers out here. And, to have one of my stepsons two of my stepsons alive today. This disease almost took them out. It almost took me out years ago. And a lot of other people. And whenever I see empty chairs sitting in the hall, I always think every time, usually in meditation or by the end of the meeting, and never miss it, that, I know that many people that aren't even walking around anymore because of making fear-based decisions, and that they lost hope that, that the process would work, or that AA would work for them. And it does say in the old meeting guides, says the purpose of an open meeting is to carry the message of the big book. And it's certainly not what I was doing before for 13 years. I give you a 95% drunk-a-log, and then 5 minutes of, I got a good job, good family, nice car, yeah, life's good. Not really. So anyways, the basis of trusting and relying on God is, the best end result that we can have. So every morning, my prayers, they do include a fear prayer, third step prayer, thy will, not mine, be done, It's just so important for me to turn it over every morning. And so I build, my faith gets built every day, and a little bit stronger. And the end of it talks about all men of faith have courage. And you don't have to look very far around this room. It took courage for us people to keep coming through the door, whether it was the first time or whatever we're walking through, no matter how long we're sober. Things come up. Fear, Bill Wilson said, I'm just paraphrasing, that to the effect of, men that don't think they have fear, he meant everybody, basically he thinks that they're mistaken. And that's a paraphrase, but it's in as Bill sees it. And he wrote this book, and I trust everything that's in this book. This is a spiritually written book. It's a spiritual program, and God pushed the pen. It's like he pushed it on, my fourth step, and he was pushing the pen in here. And Wilson, when he wrote the book, he sent it out. They sent it out to like 400 people, and he asked their opinion. He wasn't afraid of their opinion. He asked for input. What do you think? And they worked on things, right? Like changing it to, in the beginning, to a higher power and stuff like that, to make it so all-inclusive as possible. Because that's what AA should be, like Bob said, it's about love and service. And so I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of you. Thanks for the opportunity.